Hey, Alex, great to have you here.
Thank you, Jill. Nice to be here.
It's going to be, like I told you, a robust conversation. So, we are talking all about sofas today. And for listeners out there, I know sofas, first of all, it's like the main part of the room. It's the bones that I call it. It's one of the first things when you're figuring out your floor plan in like a living room, family room that you think about. And you also think about it, people think about it because it's one of the biggest investments. And people think about it because lifestyles have changed and they want things that are durable and fabrics that are cleanable and washable. And so there's a lot of components. And now that we have the online world, so we're going to talk about all of it today. And I will start, Alex, just by letting you give kind of like a brief introduction to yourself.
Sure. So I am currently the CEO and founder of Couch.com. And Couch.com, we are on a mission to match customers with their perfect sofas. And in your case, match designers with the perfect sofas for their clients.
Yep.
For us and for me, I previously ran an online brand called Apartment 2B, APT 2B.
Mm-hmm.
And I founded that with a partner of mine back in 2010 when there was like nobody was selling furniture online at all.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting landscape to navigate, and we learned a lot along the way, and customers learned a lot along the way too. Like back then, no one was really buying any big ticket items online, and
Yeah.
over the years people got more and more comfortable with it, and now it is, if not a major place that people do buy couches, because still about 80% of the commerce is done on the brick and mortar level.
Yeah.
It's definitely a place where people go to discover, to be inspired. So with couch.com, we just wanted to like be all over that and really help people find retailers and couches that
Mhm.
match their personal specifications and what they're looking for. Because the fact
Right.
remains, nobody knows where to buy a couch. Like even designers and even me, a couch expert,
Yeah.
I don't really know every couch place here in Los Angeles where I live. Like it's a difficult world to navigate, and so we're trying to make that easier.
Yeah, no, you are. So, I mean, I guess so the main motivation for starting it was, like you said, there was some online going on, but not much. And you kind of saw an opportunity to say, there's going to be more online, and how are we going to help people navigate this couch thing? Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because
People.
there's a lot of different components make up, buying a couch, seat depth, cushioning, there's all
Oh,
kinds of things, right? So were you trying to
yeah.
kind of solve, because what I think you've done, I'll let everybody know, I mean, they'll know at the end too, but Alex's platform is couch.com. He's on Instagram. His Instagram alone, what I love about it is it's easy to read, and you can get right what you want. Like, it's everything from couch reviews. We're going to talk about all that he does, but it's amazing. Like, as a designer, I find it a great resource.
That's awesome. Thank you, by the way. Um,
But
yeah,
basically,
I
I'm
mean,
trying to say, was the driving motivation kind of like, there is going to be this marketplace that all of a sudden expands now because of the internet. And so that could almost make it more confusing for the consumer.
oh, 100%. And it's
Yeah.
it's it's everything you just said. Once you dip your toe into the couch buying experience,
Right.
you realize that there are actually like 100 or 1,000 different variables that you have to consider when making your purchase,
Yeah.
like seat depth, like durability, timing. That's a
Yeah.
huge thing. And especially I mean, as many designers know, like sometimes you can have a lead time that's available tomorrow, and then there's one that's 20 weeks out for something custom made. So you really have to be careful about the path that you go down, because you don't want to fall in love with something that isn't really going to fit your specification. So our goal at couch.com and the platform that we're building
Hmm.
is geared towards getting information from us, the customers, and figuring out what we're looking for most. Is it timing? Is it, do I have cats? Do I have young kids? Like, and then guiding people through the online research and shopping experience a little bit better. And if they need to see it in person at a brick and mortar store, we're bringing that into our platform as well. And, you know, essentially democratizing the retailer landscape by putting online retailers next to brick and mortar retailers, because not everybody is comfortable buying something online, and that's okay.
Right. And you and I are going to get into that a little bit. But let's talk about one of the things that you've been doing a lot on your Instagram, which I love, is you're giving really detailed reviews of a lot of brands. Restoration Hardware, Sundays, what's the other one? Living Concepts, right? Made in Home, all these brands. And I think I had said to you, I was very curious about the Sundays line because I've seen it promoted on Instagram, but I didn't know too much about it. I liked the look of it. And I went into your review, and what was nice about it, it just had a lot of details broken down sort of categorically. And I was able to get a better sense of that sofa, how it's made, what it feels like. So let's talk a little bit about your detailed reviews and how you obtain them, because they're a great resource, like I said, for designers like myself and clearly for the average customer. So how do you
Yeah.
get those detailed reviews?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's interesting when new AirPods come out, you'll find thousands of reviews from people who have tried them and tech influencers and things like that. When it comes to couches and furniture in general, that ecosystem doesn't really exist yet. Right now, all the reviews that are out there are generally like paid sponsorships or written
Yeah,
by sort of random writers, and there's a lack of specificity and detail.
a
There
lot.
you see
Yeah.
a lot of like keywords, and we do it too because you have to play the online game to just be noticed and indexed by Google.
Yeah.
For people to find you, you have to do certain things, but you can tell when something is written by someone who understands what's going on versus not. So
Yeah.
I think our approach is really just two things. One, offering advice from real couch experts, whether it's myself or other people in my network and industry. And this is what I've done for my entire career, essentially.
Right.
And two, really making sure that we have the most robust sort of set of information. We're talking about
Hmm.
online shopping experience and
Hmm.
what do they have a great clearance section, and what are the best selling products, and what are people saying about them, so we can essentially create a one-stop aggregate resource
Hmm.
for all of the information that one would probably want to consider when they think about a brand like
Yeah.
Sundays.
Well, like I said, when I was curious about Sundays and looked, it was really helpful because you had a lot. You even had things about construction, which as a designer, I'm familiar with some of the terms. A consumer might not be, but they can start to learn about construction. And like you're not always comparing an apple to an apple. So when you're shopping for sofas, you may see one at this price with this lead time, one at this, but you have to say, well, how's that one made? Whatever. So you did give like enough information for me, like I said, to get a better sense than I had before. And I think that's huge, because
Yeah,
it wasn't a piece that's near me that I could go see and touch, right? They're not available
right.
near me, at least to my knowledge. So that was really great. So that's good. So I'm just going to let people know one of the big things that Alex does are these reviews, and it's all the brands that you guys ask me about that you are shopping for. He is right on trend with all of it. So I think that's amazing. Um, as I mentioned to you, even before online, as a designer, most of us were creating custom. So we have, and that still exists. Like we have workrooms in our area and we build the sofa custom. And even during that time, the biggest challenge for people was, well, how can I order something that I'm not going to sit on? Right. And I think that's become more prevalent with online, although people now that it's online seem to be more willing to shop and give it a try. And some of these companies, and as part of your review, you have their return policy and all of that. So that how do I order something that I haven't sat in? You have some great tips for this that you and I even spoke about. So let's chat about that and let the listeners know some of those tips.
Yeah. So we did discuss this before, and because it's something that I know I've sold hundreds of thousands of couches to people who have never sat in them before.
Me
My
too.
former, yeah. So it's like it's a difficult thing, and I think the first thing is to be transparent and authentic about your approach in doing this, which is to say that like, no, you're never gonna see or you're never gonna feel this or sit on it until it gets there. Let's
Right.
just level set. Like certain custom pieces or things you're ordering online, you're not gonna see them. There is no way to see that specific thing, especially if it's custom.
Right.
So even though that seems obvious, it's something that's just people do try to like, well, is there any way? Can I come to the way? Just let's maybe not go that route.
Right.
Instead, there are other ways to really provide a lot more comfort as a customer buying something sight unseen for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And that's all surrounding the idea of context. And I think
Mhm.
getting context for the different details that a sofa or a given piece may embody is
Mhm.
very important. So,
Okay.
one, like seat depth is something that is, it is different between every single piece, but generally speaking, somebody or a customer or someone who sits on a couch has a seat depth or a seat depth range that's comfortable for them. If
Yeah.
someone's 5'1", they probably don't want, if they're 5'1" and they want to have their feet on the floor, they need a very narrow or shallow seat depth. So
Right.
that's a very obvious example. And most people it's a little bit more, nebulous for them. But one way to achieve this is sit on the couch you have now,
Mhm.
measure the seat depth from the
Mhm.
front of the cushion to where the cushion, the back cushions begin,
Mhm.
and start to get a sense of what that is. Like educate yourself on these
Mhm.
measurements.
Mhm.
Arm width. This is something that like customers don't really have a concept of all these things, as you
Mhm.
said. So measure your own couch or possibly go to a local store, even if it's Bob's Discount and you're interested in restoration hardware.
Right.
Sitting on couches, feeling the different types of cushioning,
Yeah.
asking questions. It's not rocket science. It's just things that we're not really educated on at any point until you start buying something. So it's
Right.
good to get yourself out there, trying different things, asking people questions, sitting on friends' couches and seeing like, oh, what kind of cushioning is it? Oh, this is Trillium. Oh, what's
Yeah.
that?
Right.
Understanding something like that makes you feel a lot more connected to what you're buying, even if you're not
Mhm.
seeing it in person.
Yeah, and people don't realize too, so, like, I've worked with some families where everyone's really tall. They're in, like, the 6-foot range or so. So we would always order the deeper sofa, okay? And that's important. If you do have a tall family, make sure you're not looking at a sofa that you love and the seat depth only comes in one depth that's relatively standard. Not everyone may be comfortable. So I think seat depth is one of the most critical things to think about, and then the cushioning too, as far as how the sofa is going to feel. Like the arm width, sometimes it's more of an aesthetic thing, um, but it's all good to know. But I do think those two things could be, as far as the consumer goes, what they're going to feel first, right?
Yeah.
Just
Uh,
my
what?
just
Oh,
my 2 cents
100%.
based on selling sofas for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah,
Um,
no, you're spot on.
you know?
And
Um,
one other thing, fabric samples, huge. Like
well, yeah,
if they offer fabric samples, not just to be able to see the color in person, but to literally feel the fabric that you're
very
gonna be
important.
feeling, it's so important. And just spend the extra time, a few days, a week, whatever it takes to get those samples delivered to you and order them, whatever it takes for a specific brand. I
Yeah.
always recommend doing that because it's just very valuable experience.
Oh, for sure, and most companies will send the samples for free. Sometimes if it's, let's say, a Pottery Barn sofa you're interested in, you can go right to the store if you have one near you and grab the samples, but it's really important. You don't want anything too scratchy. Nobody really likes anything that feels scratchy, and you have to be
Right.
careful because some of the performance fabrics can. Performance fabrics are come a long way, and most of them are fabulous, but some companies sell what I call kind of the lower end ones, and they can be a little scratchy or pill, so you just wanna make sure of that. But yeah, I think that's great. And I think that concern, oddly enough, has been diminished slightly by online because people are willing to take this online chance now because it's so prevalent. So it is interesting how it's evolving, but I still think it does come up. And I do think a lot of these companies, you can tell me, but most of them have a pretty good return policy, I think, if you get the sofa and you don't like it.
Yeah, I don't, there aren't too many companies that are very successful that are operating without a return policy. So let's
Yeah.
just start there.
Yeah. And it's
Um,
funny because with custom, we didn't have a return policy. How about that? We couldn't because it was being custom made for that customer. But I was because it was, in that case, it was local people. We did have the workrooms available. And if that client wanted to visit the workroom and not sit on the exact sofa, but a similar frame, sit on the cushioning, um, I was a trusted, professional with them.
right.
We always had a high success rate and everybody loved their sofa, but you have to have a knowledge of it to do that and go the custom route. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
question for you: when it comes to construction, what do you think the biggest thing is the consumer should look for as far as quality? Um, and the second part to that is, how can consumers win that kind of budget versus quality battle? And when I'm talking about construction, I guess I'm talking about how the frame is built and like the springs and the frame. Do you have like a gold standard?
Well, I have sort of a provocative take on this,
Okay.
which is from a lot of data over the years.
Yeah.
Frames of sofas don't break very often. We're
Mhm.
talking, a 0.001% type of a thing.
Okay.
I think it's something that is sort of overstated as in importance, generally speaking. Now, I'm not saying a sofa that costs $299 at a discount furniture store is going to be made well enough to stand the test of time.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, if you're making a thoughtful purchase, most frames and spring suspension systems are going to be um, fine for your needs. It doesn't need to be all solid oak or alderwood to
Or
to
the kiln dried hardwoods. Do you think it has to be a kiln dried hardwood frame?
I mean, just to keep this interesting, I'll tell you, I know that it doesn't have to be a kiln. I
Okay.
have couches in my own house. That's sort of like a buzz term that I think caught fire. Kiln dried. See what I did there?
I know. No, I'm asking you because I feel like in the design industry for a while, that's kind of like the gold standard.
I think it's a way that I think it's a differentiating sales mechanism,
Mhm.
differentiating factor when one brand or manufacturer is selling couches.
Okay.
If that's where they get, if their wood supplier has kiln dried hardwood, then they're going to make sure that they advertise that.
Got it.
And look, that may be important to someone. If you have three preteens at home who are like literally doing WWE wrestling on each other the entire time, that may be a larger concern for you. But I guess my sort of insider insight, if you will, is that frames break very infrequently. So I would focus more on the other aspects. Like, I think cushioning, the type of cushioning is so much more important
Yeah.
than the frame. The frames are quite simple, and
Yeah.
as long as there's no defect, it generally stays intact.
And same with the springs.
Yeah, I think it's hard to notice a difference in spring support systems for
Mhm.
me. Most have a sinuous steel, which is like, it kind of looks like an old school radiator.
Exactly.
Um,
Yep.
you're from the East Coast, like me.
Yep.
So we have those there. And one thing I think is sort of underused, I'm a big fan of Pirelli webbing. And I think that, the one, it sort of looks like straps,
Yes.
um, in a cross pattern like
Yep.
this. I've found that works really well too.
Good.
These springs are much simpler. They're always sort of oversold. But I've
Yeah.
been in plenty of factories and seen many production lines. It's like, they're simple parts of the couch.
Yeah.
This is not addressing maybe the higher end parts of the industry that
Right.
really maybe pride themselves in every little detail of construction. But for
Yeah.
your average person, you know
Yep.
middle class, upper middle class person looking to spend $1,000, $2,000 on the couch, which is generally the average,
Mhm.
these things are not the spring support system, and the frames will probably be fine on almost every single piece that you're considering. I would focus on other areas personally.
Okay. So if someone was looking for a sign of quality when they're shopping to say, "Okay, is this sofa gonna last me?" Is there anything that stands out to you that they should, like, try to see if this sofa has?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to make comparisons to apparel, right? We've all
Yes.
worn clothes for our entire lives, and
Right.
all of us, even your average dude like me, knows a good quality piece or what's going to last with in a very nuanced way more than another one. So you're
Right.
looking for similar signs, right? Like the actual feel of the material, like on the
Yeah.
couch, is the same as, I only want things that are like dry fit like this because I know they're going to fit me in the way that I like. I
Right.
think that's, shouldn't be understated.
Okay.
That's very, very important. When it comes to frame and construction, if you're really looking for something sturdy, one sign that maybe some corners were cut a little bit too much, and I'm talking more of like the lower end, more promotional parts of the industry, is to pick up one corner of the couch. Now, couches are generally not that heavy. I'm not saying, put on your, what do you call it? Like a back brace.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Literally just bend your knees, go down there, or have someone there to help you and lift one corner. If
Yeah.
that corner comes way off the ground and there's the other three are on there, that means that it's able to be bent in a way that it probably shouldn't. The four corners should move mostly in sync. Although you will find that lifting one corner of almost any couch will yield like an imbalanced, raising. Like you'll see only one come off the ground. But if it
Right.
comes way off the ground, or if it feels extremely lightweight, like you could slide it across the floor,
Right.
probably a sign, if construction is important to you and sturdiness, that's not the one for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. So when we talk about, and I think you did like a little report or something about the budget versus quality battle. So from a designer, what I look at is, like I said in the beginning, this is like your investment piece. If there is an investment piece in a room, to me, one of the biggest thing is the sofa, only because you want to get it and enjoy it for a while. And as we know, sofas can be really expensive. And since COVID, they've gone up because of materials. And even though lead times are down and pretty much back to normal in most cases, um, sofas can be, quite expensive. So it's like, how do you balance that sort of, I want something decent. I don't want it to give out on me in a couple years. I want it to last longer, but I don't want to break the bank. What are your best tips on that? Because I think that's a really common struggle.
Yeah, I think when it comes to couches, generally, we're talking broad strokes. You get what you pay for.
Hmm.
And I think you can sort of trust the industry for any brands or stores that have been around for a while. You can trust their price points to sort of give you a bit of a narrative of how long something is supposed to last.
Hmm.
So I hope that was clear. But what I'm saying is, if something's obviously, if it's a $399 couch from Ashley, it's not something that's going to last for 20 years,
Right.
probably.
Right.
And conversely, if it's, a $4,000 or $5,000 couch from RH or something custom made, it's probably going to last. So you can sort of trust the industry to guide you a little bit in this. It's rare to find, an extremely expensive couch that's only going to last a short period of time.
Right.
That being said, personally, I feel like a bigger guiding principle might be how long you want to have a couch for, not need to have it, meaning like furniture is sort of the new fashion. Like couches change, and this, like people switch it up every 3 to 5, 7 years or whatever.
Hmm.
So I think really thinking about how long you're going to have this couch. Is this like something that just meets your current design? Are you going to be moving soon to a new place?
Yeah.
And then starting there. But generally speaking, if you want something to last, you want to go with something that is a little a decent price point, meaning not too overly promotional. I
Right.
think that's one big thing. And honestly, my personal take is that, once you get into the super, super high end, even though they may be pitching sofas that last a lifetime, I don't think there's really that much of a, I don't think they last that much longer
Right.
than a sofa that costs $1,000 or $2,000.
Right.
So personally, I would go for sort of the mid-range, $1,000 to $2,000, maybe $3,000 couches. Those are the ones that will last you a long time. And it's not that much of an investment that you're like taking out a second mortgage to pay for it.
Okay. Yeah. And I think just the other thing is just educate yourself in the marketplace. Just as a designer, I know some inside things. So, like, I had a friend not even a client. She was looking at a sofa. I won't name the retailer. She told me how much it was. And I was like, honestly, there's a brand of sofa. I gave her the name that one of my retailers sells, and it's X amount. And literally the price I told her was half of what she got quoted that same day for the same
Wow.
sofa. Now, it's a sofa that's going to last. So if you pay the price she was quoted, it's going to last and it's a perceived value. But I'm like, that sofa actually costs like X at this retailer. So she was like, wow, that was like the exact same manufacturer I looked at. This happens to be a retailer who I feel like they're a little bit high priced to begin with for what they offer. But that is coming from a perspective of somebody who has been in like, understanding and seeing furniture lines for the last 20 years. So, you can just kind of educate yourself. And meaning if something looks similar in one store, it is possible it's the same manufacturer. It's possible. You can do a little research.
It's an industry that's still like the Wild West. It's very, those things happen all the time. And you'll find a lot of, retailers, pulling some funny business or calling something. I mean, think about the mattress industry. It's like all the same mattress and everybody just calls it a different thing because they have
so
to.
Confusing. And it doesn't happen all over the place with like, it depends. But, this was a very specific example. And I was just like, yeah, wow. Yeah, no, that sofa you shouldn't pay that for because it's a great sofa. I have a client that just bought one and she loves it. It's comfortable. I think it's going to last quite a long time. But this person, my friend, was about to pay double for it. And it wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's all kind of interesting. So you also talk about, because you really cover everything from soup to nuts on a sofa, and we're just touching the surface today. So everybody's got to go to couch.com and check this out because you really have everything. But tell us one old wives' tale about cleaning your sofa.
I got a good one for this.
Okay.
And I knew when I was selling couches when I was 20 years old on the showroom, I learned this trick. One of the simplest and purest cleaning agents is rubbing alcohol. And this is something that you will see a little bit online, but I've researched a lot of, old wives' tales over the last year as we've been building couch.com just to see what other people are talking about. Some people say to dilute it with water. I haven't done that before. So whenever we had an in-person experience, we did a lot of work with Costco. So we did these special events at Costco where we would come in and put our couches on the sales floor. We'd have like 6 to 8 models and we would, pitch them and sell them to the customers of Costco.
Yeah.
Well, as you can imagine, what is Costco famous for? The free food samples. These little hot dogs, you name it. I've cleaned everything off of a cat. Everything oh my God.
Yeah.
And people just go, oh, sorry. And then they walk away. And then you're left with, they can easily sort of escape without helping or something.
Right.
But
it's a big
Costco.
Place. Yeah.
You get it. So we would always keep a big like industrial size rubbing alcohol handy. And literally you can go to town. You can spray it very liberally. Now, at first it's very, very potent and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm ruining my couch.
Yeah.
Not the case. The smell subsides within probably 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
And the best thing about alcohol is that it's a very pure cleaning agent while also being non-water based. And that is the key. It dries very quickly and it does not leave any water marks or water stains on any of the upholstery because some upholstery is very sensitive
to that. Yeah. So on these new performance fabrics, is the alcohol okay? Does it interact with synthetics okay? So it can interact okay with synthetic or a natural fiber? The alcohol wouldn't harm?
In my experience, we've tried it with everything.
Yeah.
Now, with super high performance fabrics, I wouldn't go straight to any sort of cleaning agent personally. Like I have high performing velvet couches. I have 2 young kids and I've had pets. I'm a old school, just take water
and
use what.
Yeah.
Yeah. So performance fabrics, if it's labeled a performance fabric, it should be water resistant, if not water repellent as well.
Right. Yeah.
So, and water gets out. If my kids, spilled a little soda or juice, whatever, like a little water goes a long way. So
Yeah, and just
I wouldn't
blotting.
sleep
Yeah,
on that. Yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't go straight to something heavier like a
right.
Resolve spray or rubbing alcohol or
Yeah,
anything else. Just try water first, see if it works.
yeah. And I always recommend to people, no matter what you're using, even if it is water, do a little patch test somewhere where it won't be noticeable. Because the thing about water, you have to be careful of if the fabric has, I try to use none of it. But if it has like natural bamboo or viscose in it, water is not your friend.
Right.
So there are fibers that do react to water. They're being used less, especially in a performance fabric. But if it's a non-performance fabric, you want to just make sure. So anytime you can test a little corner somewhere, or if you have sometimes I keep the fabric sample and we'll sometimes before we order test it and see how stains work on it, whatever, but keep a swatch of it and you can do a patch test of a cleaner on it before you do it on your sofa. So that's another
Yeah,
benefit of
that's
those
a
swatches.
huge tip. Don't just
Yeah.
look at them, feel them, and actually test them.
Yeah.
That's there. You have a little test fabric that you're
Yep.
getting in the mail. Take
Yep.
a little mustard or some red wine and
Or
see what
spaghetti
it takes.
sauce. I've done it for clients. I'm like, okay, I have it in my kitchen. I put spaghetti sauce on one, mustard on one, and I'll do like a little test kitchen and see what happens. So yeah, it's a good thing to do too, and get a couple extra swatches. But yeah, I
Big
think that's
time.
great. Um, Lastly, it's not always about getting a new sofa. You actually give tips also on how to determine if you can revive the one you have. Is it worth it? Could you put a fresh slipcover? Should you reupholster or not? Let's touch a bit on that. Lately, I would say in the last at least 5 years, when I've priced out taking a client's sofa and reupholstering it versus buying new, we're at about equal. Now, what could sway that is the sofa they have might just be really great in construction. It's a solid, good piece. Maybe it was something from a family, whatever, and they just really love it. So sometimes we weigh it that way. But you have some tips as well, and you talk a lot about, okay, the sofa I have, is there just a way to revive it? Um,
Yes.
yeah.
I have a
We can talk about
few good tips on this. One, the reupholstery versus buying new conundrum is something that so many people struggle with because reupholstery is just very expensive. It is a very labor intensive um, process that is almost the same as building a new sofa.
that. Right.
So that's why I would consider also like, does your current sofa have any resale value? Because there's so much action these days on resale marketplaces. The biggest one for furniture right now, still Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
If you can get $300-400 for your couch that you spent $3,000 on a few years ago, and put that towards your new couch. Maybe that's a determining factor, but I digress. Three things. One, slip covers right now are like so much more high tech and also good looking that it
Mm,
really, if you have a fabric issue, that
yeah.
may be really something to consider and can also be a way to freshen up your look. And I'm not talking about something cheesy,
Right.
with a floral pattern or something that isn't going to be attractive. It can honestly boost the look of your couch. There's a lot of good inexpensive products there. Another thing is for seat cushion, because a lot of the need for a new couch has to do with cushioning,
Yeah.
and you can actually get foam inserts assuming you can get into your cushions, and they're
Right. With a
most of
zipper.
them made of foam, right? You
Yeah.
can get foam, you can get down inserts, you can get whatever replaced. Now that's not totally inexpensive, but it depends. Certain, like a block of foam and here in LA can cost anywhere from like 35 to 50 or $60.
Yeah.
You can bring the existing one, even if it's a little worse for the wear, and
Yeah.
they can measure it, cut it for you, and they'll sell it to you. You can just literally Google foam supplier. They're happy to sell to designers and to, the regular customer walking in.
Yeah.
So that's a good tip. But I think my favorite tip is most conventional couches, anywhere from ranging from the lower end promotional part of the marketplace to probably, I don't know, $2,000-3,000, couches. We're talking regular 3-seater couches here.
Yeah.
Use polyfill fiber or like batting. It's called a lot of different things. It looks like that cotton-like substance that you make cobwebs with at
Yes.
Halloween, although this is a little different. So this you can actually buy very inexpensively. If your back cushions are like this, let's say you had a big dog that's been sitting on it for 5 years to look out the
Right.
window. You can buy a few bags of this on Amazon for like $15 and
Yeah.
just restuff it, or just put more inside it.
Yeah.
It's not a sexy process, because I think people are like, this is what's in my couch.
Right.
But the fact is, yes, that's what's in your couch. So
Yeah.
you can sort of give it new life by opening the cushions and putting more batting in. And a lot of interior designers and production designers that I've worked with have done this to make couches in photo shoots look a lot better.
That's a great tip. And, even if you do decide to have it done in a local workroom or reupholstery, they can revive your whole cushions too. They can add extra fill if they've, kind of flattened out over time or whatever. So you can revive a sofa. Absolutely. And it's a matter of, you have to just weigh that. You do your research and say, do I want to buy this new one? Do I like it? Or can we kind of do this? And there's some DIY to it as well, like you just mentioned, which could really go a long way, the DIY part. So
big time.
I think that's awesome. So we've touched on a lot, but you have so much more available. So let's close the show with, if you have any other tips or advice, and then let us know all the platforms where to find you. We're going to link those in the show notes. And I'm going to encourage everybody, designers and consumers, to please check out couch.com. It is like a one-stop shop of really critical information.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way. And
you're welcome.
Tons of great tips, a lot of shopping focused ones. One of my favorite articles or posts that we have is how to negotiate in a furniture store. And that's something like the furniture business, at least the brick and mortar part of it, is still very much like the car industry, where there's commission salespeople. And just if you're going and shopping in brick and mortar, which is very, very popular thing to do, as I've said during our conversation today. It's helpful to know a few like tips or tricks, when going in. Like if someone greets you at the door and pops up, it's generally a commission sales environment versus someone's like, oh, hey, let me know if you have any questions. It may not be. So there are certain tips that I have a whole video on it, and, things like that. So I'll stop there, but there's tons more from, the education process of different types of couches and terms that you may have been confused by, how to revitalize your couch, how to care for your couch, and ultimately how to buy one.
Yeah. Okay. So best place to find you is couch.com on Instagram.
Yes, I didn't answer that, but it's at our handles at couch.com, like DOTCOM, couch, DOTCOM. So that's how we're listed on every single social platform. So that's where everyone can find us. And we're posting new content all the time. A lot of brand reviews right now is what we're focused on. People are really, really engaging a lot with them. And so I've asked my team to really, focus on those. We're meeting founders and operators of these companies. Personally, I'm interviewing some of them. So we have a lot of good stuff coming up. Yeah.
I mean, and my last tip would be buy the most your budget can afford on a couch, because I think you'll get better I do feel like it's an investment in the bone of the room. So as far as your budget can stretch for that, I would say to do that there, because you can save on other pieces and it'll balance out.
I've been to so many well-designed rooms and homes of friends, and then they have a pretty, meh or a crappy couch. And I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Like you just didn't want to spend the extra money.
Right.
I couldn't agree more. I mean,
it's worth it in the long run. It really is. Like I had a sofa made. My sofa now is like, it's our sectional in our family room. I guess it's got to be 10 years now. So the thing about it is it's really comfortable. Everybody loves it. I'm just sick of the fabric on it, and I want to like reupholster it. So I'm just debating what to do, because I need so much. It's a sectional. I need so much fabric.
A lot.
And the labor that I'm like, I could totally just buy a different sofa, but I'm trying to figure out what to do, because it's a great sofa. Like it's a quality sofa. and it's comfortable for everybody. Even people who come over to visit, they're like, I love this sofa. And I'm like, I do too, except I want to recover it. So meantime, my daughter's like, get a new sofa because I want the sofa. And that is another way. If you are replacing, if you hand it down to a family member and it still gets used, that's great.
Totally. I think people don't always think outside the box. They think it's time to replace a sofa. Oh, well, this one's going to go in the trash or in some landfill. Not the case. There's plenty of ways to reuse, refurbish, as we discussed, or donate to a local charity. Even, like, people don't necessarily think about that with couches, but it's a very common thing to do, and something a little bit underutilized.
Yeah. And one more thing, and just a funny story. My mother had a Henredon sofa many years. It must have been like in the 80s she bought it. And she had the sofa forever. She probably reupholstered it maybe once. And then when I moved, I took it. So by the time I take the sofa, it's got to be 20 years old. But it's an amazing sofa. And I reupholster it. And I add a little more. We kind of like freshened up the cushions. And we kept it like another, oh God, at least 10 years. That sofa lasted forever. So when it was ready to go, we were changing the room around. We needed actually a bigger sofa, something different. I just sold it. But at that time, that sofa was built to actually last like that. And it was always comfortable. It was never uncomfortable. And my mother swore by Henredon for so long. And many, many years ago, those who are older listening will remember Castro convertible, and those things were built a tank. It like weighed as much as a tank, and it was like the most solid sleep sofa that you could have had. So it's really funny how things evolve. But yeah.
No, look, and last thing I'll say is that anecdote and just seeing your face as you're describing that, like, a sofa and a couch it's something we use all the time. It's like a part of our family almost. So it makes sense to take the time to figure out what is going to work for you best, and not just like buy the first thing that you see. I love that.
Yeah. And to that point, those sofas then were made a little different. So I don't know if the sofas
That's true.
could carry the legacy that those two I just described did, but anyway.
Yeah. No, good point. It's
right. Like washing machines and everything else. Nothing lasts like it used to. So
it's different.
It's just how it is. It's different. But thank you for being here today. Everybody, please go check out couch.com. Like I said, as a designer, it's been so helpful for me. And I know for consumers, it can definitely slice that confusion for you and help you narrow in and learn about, okay, what's the best tip for when I go out sofa shopping, and the ones I'm interested in, what do I need to learn about them? So thank you again. Really great conversation.
Thank you so much, Jill. I appreciate it.
All right. And you and I will connect soon. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.